Well, hello there. This is Giles Malone with Space Coast Daily. We're here on beautiful Sykes Creek to bring you another week of predictions from the Swamis here. We have the Swamis of Brevard County High School Sports, Steve Wilson and Orville Susong. Now, last week, if you followed, you'll have seen the remarkable predictions. These guys were right on last week, guessing 8 correct results out of 9. So, Orville, you feeling pretty confident this week?
Well, we'll try it from week to week, Giles, and see how we do. Last week was, a lot of guessing going on, really, because you don't know what coaches are going to do from week to week when they get late into the playoffs. A lot of games that were district games that really didn't mean a lot. Teams were already out of the playoffs. So there's an opportunity for a coach to put in some younger players and get them a little varsity time for next year.
And Anthony stepped in for Steve last week. Steve, are you fresh coming back?
Oh, I've been called worse, but fresh I am. I am in the zone, ready to go.
All right, well, let's see how we do this week. This is the last week of the regular season, so week 11. We've had an incredible summer season, lots of rained-out games, but we're rolling into the playoffs. Our first game is the Friday Night Locker Room Game of the Week. We've got Rockledge at Cocoa. Steve, Rockledge coming off a tough loss to Merritt Island, 6-40. And, of course, Cocoa, a big win over Orlando Jones, 40-0. How do you see Rockledge going at Cocoa?
Well, it's the barbecue bowl, so anything can happen. Normally, anything can happen, but I think the difference this year, there's so much difference between the Cocoa Tigers and the Rockledge Raiders on the field. Last week's Titusville Astronaut showed that a rivalry game can be close if the athletes are similar, but I think the Tigers are just a little too loaded for the Raiders. Friday night, it's might be close for a quarter and a half. After that, it should be all Cocoa.
Okay, well, Steve goes for Cocoa. Orville, how do you see this?
Well, yeah, I think you have to go and follow Steve's footsteps there. You have to take Cocoa. The Rockledge Raiders right now playing for Raider pride. They've had a bad season this year, and it's not going to get any better this Friday night. It is a barbecue bowl, and it's been a big rivalry. This has been the hottest ticket on football games in years and years and years, but not this year. Like I said, the Raiders a down season this year. Cocoa Tigers now only lost one game all season. They're rolling into the playoffs. I think they made a big statement last week when they beat Orlando Jones like they did and won the district championship. You have to like the Cocoa Tigers this week.
Okay, both the guys going for Cocoa. We're going to do the same at the Space Coast Daily. Coming up, we have a non-conference game, Bayside at Palm Bay. Of course, Bayside is 4-1 at home and 3-1 away. They had a loss to Heritage, 7-56 this past week, and Palm Bay coming off a big win over Satellite, 48-27. Steve, what are your predictions on this one?
Interesting matchup as two teams headed in opposite directions as we speak. The Bayside Bears will be in the playoffs. The Palm Bay Pirates, for the first time in a long time, will be home. So you're thinking that the Pirates don't have anything to play for. Dan Burke's going to have his kids up for the game. I don't know why, but it's going to happen. I think the Pirates will defeat the Bayside Bears this Friday. That's not what you want to hear if you're a Bear fan, because you want to be on a positive note heading into the playoffs, but I believe Palm Bay will win the football game.
Okay, Orville?
Yeah, I think you'll have to go with Steve on that one. But, the Bayside Bears lost to Heritage Panthers last week, 56-7, like you mentioned earlier. They'll still go to the playoffs. They'll be the number 2 team in that district behind Heritage. But Palm Bay with a big win over Satellite last week, and they will not make the playoffs this year for the first time in 18 seasons with Dan Burke as the head coach of the Palm Bay Pirates. Why did they do that? They lost to Titusville, and then Titusville beat Astronaut in a big rivalry in Titusville to knock the Palm Bay Pirates out of the playoffs. So you have to I'm going to pick the Palm Bay Pirates this week. They're going to play for senior pride for Dan Burke and the seniors on the Palm Bay Pirates team.
Yeah, I'm sure Space Coast Daily goes with that one as well. Dan Burke, with his the way he came back last week, it won't be long for him to be back in the playoffs, that's for sure. Space Coast Sports Hall of Famer there, Coach Burke. Next up, we've got Cocoa Beach at Satellite. Cocoa Beach had a tough loss to O'Galley, 0-48, and Satellite losing to Palm Bay, 27-48. This will be an interesting one.
It will be. There's two teams. This will be their last game of the year. Neither team is heading to the playoffs. Cocoa Beach Minutemen, a tough season, a very young squad, a new coach. It just takes time to get things going in the right direction. Satellite at times has played well this year. I think the Scorps are probably going to win the game. Being from Brevard County, we don't normally pull for one team over the other when two Brevard teams have played, but I'd really love to see Cocoa Beach win a game. It's been such a tough year for them, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think Satellite will win the game.
Steve, what do you think?
Well, I'm Orville, but I do think that I agree with Steve that I think the Satellite Scorpions have a great opportunity to win a ball game here. But you know what? Vieira Hawks are going to be the team that, well, they'll win out this year. They'll be undefeated. I don't want any other team to be with no wins. I'm going to go out on a limb on this one, and I'm going to pick Cocoa Beach, maybe in a close one, a special teams effort somewhere within the 4 quarters of the football game, but I like Cocoa Beach this week.
There it is. We're going to go with Orville on this one, the other Steve. And it'll be a good one here. Titusville at Space Coast. Titusville coming off a big win over Astronaut, 21-16. And Space Coast losing to Atlantic in a 19-36. Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, it's quickly turned into an interesting rival. They're in proximity, very close to each other. The Terriers heading to the playoffs. The Vipers are not. You have to go with Titusville. Played Astronaut a little closer than I would have expected. Titusville needs to win, and they need to be impressive. They need to get off on a big win, heading into the playoffs in the right direction. The Terriers, I think, will win the game Friday.
Okay, Orville, what do you think?
Titusville Terriers make the playoffs for the first time since 1995, and if you put that in perspective, that's the same year that Dan Burke started his consecutive playoff runs down in Palm Bay. So a little bit means there, and Titusville was the one that knocked Palm Bay out of the playoffs. So a little bit of karma there, maybe one way or another, but I think the Titusville Terriers win this ball game. They're in a groove right now. They're playing very well. Space Coast, the wheels fell off the wagon like we spoke of last week earlier in the season. I don't see them getting the wheels back on before this game is over. I like the Titusville Terriers this week.
Well, there it is. We just heard the fish are biting, so we're going to get our lines out, throw a quick ride. We'll be right back with our next 4 predictions. Giles, Malone back here with Space Coast Daily on beautiful Sykes Creek. Orville just landed the big one here. We're cooking it up on the barbie for this afternoon. Now then, Orville, how did you pronounce this next team coming up?
Well, Steve says Ponte Verde, so I'll go with that. But they play Merritt Island. They go into Merritt Island this year. Ponte Verde, a Class 5A District 4 opponent. They will not make the playoffs this year with a 3-6 overall record. 1-3 in their district, so they'll play for a little bit of pride maybe and see if they can stop the Merritt Island Mustangs, which I don't think they'll do. But Merritt Island comes in with a 7-2 overall record. They are 5-0 in the district, and they are on a tremendous run. Although both teams are in Class 5A on paper, Ponte Verde certainly not in the class of the Merritt Island Mustangs. I like Merritt Island this week.
Mr. Wilson.
I concur. The Mustangs ideally would like to play a strong opponent heading into the playoffs. They'll be hosting Mount Dora in a first-round game a week from Friday. But Ponte Vedra is going to come up a little short against the Mustangs. Merritt Island is just playing well. It's probably the one team in the county, maybe along with Titusville, that has surprised me this year. They've just excelled on both sides of the ball. They're playing their best football right now. Friday night, the Mustangs will win big. Okay, there it is. 2 thumbs up for the Mustangs. Now then, this is an interesting one. Potter's House Christian. Going to be playing at MCC. Orville, you nailed MCC's huge win last week. What do you say this week?
Well, I think they'll do the same thing this week. You know, for some reason, Melbourne Central Catholic was supposed to play Lake Highland Prep. We got the word that the game has been switched to Potter House Academy, but we really don't know why. But I don't think it matters who the opponent's going to be for MCC this week. I think they're going to get a win. But Potter House 4-5 overall for the year. They're 2-0 in their district, which means a lot. They are 2-0 in their district, but the district not the same as MCC and First Academy. So I think it's not going to be a big-time game for Melbourne Central Catholic. MCC comes in with a 3-game winning streak. Potter House comes in with a 3-game winning streak, and MCC will counter that with an 8-0 overall record. And they've only lost 1 game in the district, and that's to the district winner in First Academy. So they're ready to go. Brandon Ziarno, the quarterback for MCC, over 2,200 yards so far this season, and only one interception. Look for Brandon Ziarno to have another big night for MCC.
Okay, Steve?
Yeah, two things Coach Riazzi wants out of Friday night. He wants to win the football game, which he will. He wants to get out of it healthy because the following Friday he takes his squad to Lakeland to take on a Lakeland Christian team that's a very, very good football team in the first round of the playoffs. I agree with Orville. Ziarno's going to have a big night, and he's had a lot of big nights. Just last week he became the all-time leading passer on the Space Coast, period. That says a lot about the young man. So MCC is going to roll Friday night, and then the real season starts for them a week from Friday.
Great. Yeah, Giano's a real credit to this community and, of course, a great standout player. O'Galley came off a big win last week because of Cocoa Beach, and they're at Harmony. Orville, what do you see?
Both of these schools are 7A schools, which means they have a lot of students going there, and you would expect them to be big squads. But really, neither team with a huge squad like you would expect, like a Vieira or somebody like that. But no playoff berth for O'Galley this year. They were in the playoffs last year, the runner-up to Melbourne, beat Vieira last year to get into the playoffs. Vieira revenged that loss last year over not only over O'Galley but also over Melbourne to stay undefeated and be the district champs there. So you have to like what Vieira has done. But O'Galley, I think they'll get a win this week just because it's the last game of the season. They're going to push all week long to get that last win to go. No playoffs for them, like I said. They want to win this week just to keep momentum going into the off season.
Steve?
Yeah, I like the Commodores. I think Price is going to have a big night on the ground for O'Galley. If you look at Harmony, they lost by 3 touchdowns to Space Coast a few weeks ago, and I kind of equate Space Coast and O'Galley. They're on similar lines. I think O'Galley will finish up the season with a win. Kind of a disappointing season for them. They made the playoffs last year. Not going to happen this year, but O'Galley will roll Friday night.
There it is. O'Galley, thumbs up. Next up, we have Heritage at American Heritage from Delray Beach. Orville?
Heritage Panthers from Palm Bay making a statement last week by winning soundly over the Bayside Bears 56-0. The Bayside Bears were undefeated in the district, and Heritage just dismantled all 3 phases of the game for the Bayside Bears. I like Heritage Panthers this week to get a big win, and I think it will be a big win for them.
Okay, Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, I think you want to play good teams as you head into the playoffs, and Heritage has maybe be broken off more than they can chew. American Heritage out of Delray is the number 2 ranked team in the state of Florida in Class 3A. Very good football team. I think American Heritage is going to win the game if the Panthers can play it close and tight. Moral victories aren't what you're looking for, but you want to get out of it healthy, compete, and get ready for the playoffs. But unfortunately, I like American Heritage this week.
Very good. And can Holy Trinity bounce back after that tough week last week, Orville?
Well, it's hard to say. Nate Hooks has a very young squad at Holy Trinity, and they've lost some games this year, and they've been able to bounce back the next week with a win, and sometimes very easily win. So you have to think that he will put that in their minds that they can do that. But Holy Trinity lost to district rival MCC last week 51-0, but so has a lot of other pretty good football teams lost to MCC this year. Foundation Academy has a 5-4 record overall, and they're 1-1 in their district. They have a 3-game losing streak coming in, and I think after Friday night it will be losing streak number 4.
Okay, Mr. Wilson.
These 2 teams are so evenly matched. On paper, they're just almost identical. And oftentimes when that happens, you go with the home team. Foundation out of Winter Garden. I'm almost leaning towards them, but I think the Tigers are going to somehow pull it out in the fourth quarter. Holy Trinity will win the game by 3 points.
There it is, folks. You heard it from the Swamis here. Our Friday Night Locker Room are running an incredible 87% accuracy rate this season, by the way, their predictions. So you heard it here on Space Coast Daily. We'll be right back now with the Swamis' predictions and the rankings for this next week, the final week, Week 11. Space Coast Daily back now. Giles and Malone here on beautiful Sykes Creek. The trout and the snook are cooking up over there on the barbecue. Orville's getting hungry here, but he's hungry to share with you his rankings for the final week of the regular season.
Well, we fought with Matt O'Hearn, who used to sit in the big chair now where you're located. Steve and I and Matt fought every week about the top 5. This is our last top 5 before we go into the playoffs. So I think, and I'm sure Steve did, spend a little more time and effort in trying to get it right. Like you said, 86% prediction correct over the 9 weeks. Obviously, we didn't include Matt's, or it would be down to about 35%. But we like where we're at on that. But top 5 real quick. Last week, I had Titusville and Heritage together at a top 5. But this week, I put Titusville at number 5. They stay at the number 5 this week by themselves with a close win over Astronaut, and Titusville makes the playoffs for the first time since 1995, and I took that into consideration, congratulating Wayne Lawrence and his Titusville Terriers, putting him at number 5 by themselves. Heritage Panthers, they move up in the number 4 spot, out of the number 5 spot, by beating Bayside, who came in undefeated in the district. The Bears took a loss. They actually drop out of my top 5 from last week. So I have for number 4, I have the Heritage Panthers. Number 3, same as last week and the week before that, I have the Merritt Island Mustangs clicking on all cylinders. The coaching staff there has Merritt Island ready to go, and they're anxious to make the playoffs. I think they'll go deep into the playoffs, one of the few teams in the county that may, but I think they'll go there. I think they'll go deep into the playoffs. They're my number 3 team. The number 2 team started out at the beginning of the year, the first week. I had them at number 2, and I still have them there, and that is the Viera Hawks. They just continually win. Congratulations to the coaching staff and the school. They won their district for the first time ever in school history. They won out, never lost a game all year for the first time in history, and they'll make the playoffs for the first time in history. In 2 weeks, they'll have their first home game, which is another first for the Viera Hawks. And at number 1, my preseason back-to-back, all the way from the beginning to the end, I had the Cocoa Tigers. Barbecue Bowl this week against the Rockledge Raiders. Coco's been my number 1 team since the start. The Tigers clinched their 7th consecutive district title last week with a big win. Heard on the Friday night locker room game of the week over Orlando Jones, 46-0, getting their first round playoff at home. I like the Tigers at number 1.
There it is. That's Orville's top 5. Now, Steve Wilson, what have you got?
Well, I actually have a top 8 this week. Orville's going to appreciate that. I trimmed it down from 12 to 8, so I worked hard. I have 3 honorable mention teams, the Palm Bay Pirates. Disappointing year for the Pirates, if you ask Coach Burke, did not make the playoffs for the first time in a long time. I still think they're one of the better teams, but I have them as an honorable mention, along with the MCC Hustlers. MCC scores points at will. Defense a little suspect at times, although their defense has played better as of late. I have them right outside the top 5, knocking on the door, along with the Titusville Terriers. Titusville only lost a couple of games this year, a very strong football team. I'm not convinced they are one of the top 5 teams in the county, but they're awful close to it. Now the real top 5. Sitting at number 5, the Melbourne Bulldogs. What a win last week against the Sebastian River Sharks. That was the win they needed to get into the playoffs. Sebastian River had been playing well. The Bulldogs just dominated the game. That's why they're now back into my top 5 at number 5. The Heritage Panthers, number 4. They just run the football. They score points. They're starting to play good defense. They're playing their best football right now, which is what you want to see the teams do. So I have the Panthers at number 4. Number 3, the Mustangs from Merritt Island. Orville mentioned they may go deep in the playoffs. They may very well. Their defense is so much better than I thought it was, especially at the beginning of the year. And you're going to win championships with defense. I like the Mustangs at number 3. Viera Hawks, I'm not going to change. I have them at number 2. They've won every single football game they've played this year. They're going to win their first round playoff, and then it gets tough after that. But this is what you expect. Cocoa Tigers are going to round out my top 5 at number 1. Very impressive win last week against Jones. We had a chance to talk to Coach Wilkinson after the game. He was very pleased with the offense and defense. He saw some things. Special teams he was a little concerned about. I really didn't see it. I thought they played a solid football game all the way around. But the Cocoa Tigers, I don't think there's any question. They are the best team in Brevard County. They are my number 1 team.
Yes, and now that Matt is swimming with the fishes this week, I'm going to go with Cocoa as well as the number 1 team. It's been a real pleasure to bring you this action here this season with the gurus and the swamis of Brevard County High School sports, Steve Wilson and Orville Susong from the Friday Night Locker Room. These guys really call it down the line almost every time. Make sure you tune in to SpaceGhostDaily.com this Friday to keep up with all the action, and make sure you tune in to the Friday Night Locker Room Game of the Week, the Barbecue Bowl, coming up this Friday night.